So in our last few videos, we've been talking about XFL players making the jump to the NFL. Well, we thought it'd be a good idea to talk about some NFL players, maybe on the back end of their career. Maybe they were studs in college and haven't panned out in the NFL. Whatever it may be, NFL players that are looking to rehab their careers, and maybe they could do it in the XFL. So we came up with 10 names. Actually, we kind of cheated. It's a little more than 10 names, but 10 slots where we're going to talk about players that could rehab their careers, making that jump to the XFL. Before we get into that, thanks guys for tuning in to this episode of XFL Chalk Talk. We're brought to you by Bet Online. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, click the notification bell so you get all of our latest content, and follow us on social media. We're at XFL Chalk Talk on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube. So let's get right into it, guys. At number 10, it's a big name. There was a little bit of debate between us whether he should be on this list or not. I mean, how many chances can Josh Gordon get? If you really look at it, Kenny, for a guy that's had one season with over 1,000 yards, he's gotten quite a few chances. Now, it was a hell of a season, but at this point, what was it, 7 years ago? Like, how many more chances can Josh Gordon get? And can he get a chance in the XFL and really do something with it to get another NFL opportunity?
Yeah, the reason he keeps getting chances is because his talent's undeniable. He's unbelievable. I mean, like you said, it was a heck of a season in 2013. He had 87 catches, 1,600 yards, 9 touchdowns. Like, he was being viewed as the future all-pro receiver for the next decade, essentially. And it just never panned out, unfortunately, because of suspensions and just stuff that's really going on off the field with him. So, I think it would be a perfect spot for him to get back with low expectations. He's not going to have that NFL expectation, because even as he came back, as he went to Seattle last year, there was people talking about how that move was going to make Seattle an instant Super Bowl contender. That's a lot of expectation to put on someone who already has substance abuse issues. This way he can start in the XFL, have a lot of low expectation. The XFL doesn't test for marijuana. And I don't know if there's any other substances that he had tested positive for or not, but we know that was one of them. So if that is an issue, that's not an issue in the XFL, and it allows him to come back at his own pace and really show that he still has some left in the tank, and can prove that he can stay reliable for a season.
Yeah, and one key note with Josh Gordon is that he's suspended underneath the old CBA agreement. So like his punishment is still suspendable. So he still has to face Roger Goodell, and if he did come back to the NFL, he could be suspended for multiple games. I'm not sure what that looks like, and he's got to have that conversation. But if he goes to the XFL, he wouldn't be suspended. So this might be an opportunity for him to get some more playing time without having to go through the suspension process. And like Kenny said, lower expectations, and somebody that really hasn't played a whole lot of football in the last 6 years. This is probably an opportunity for him to just get back in playing shape.
Yeah, the only thing I would say to this is that his ability has never been in question, right? And a lot of people on our list here, it's really an ability question. Do they have the ability to be a big-time player in the XFL so they can make that jump back to the NFL? What makes him unique at number 10 is that it's not a talent thing at all. It's the ability to be reliable.
It's availability. To be on a roster.
It's availability, not –
it's the best ability.
Right. So that's what I mean. I don't know if it's ultimately a great fit. But it's one guy that can at least show teams that, hey, I can be on a roster for 10 weeks. But again, guys, how many chances we got to give this guy?
Yeah, and we're talking 7 years ago, man. Like at some point, it's just like you got to move on. I don't know if I've ever seen a player get so many chances, and I know a lot of it's been off marijuana, and whatever your feelings are on marijuana, he obviously clearly has issues. If he can't figure it out with the New England Patriots, which is where it seems like that's the place where guys who have had issues go and like revitalize their career, he wasn't even able to do it there. So if he can't do it there, I'm not sure it's going to happen. But nevertheless, he comes in at 10 because the talent, is undeniable. But I don't even know if he still has the talent. So it would be interesting to see him in the XFL. I'm not sure how likely it is. But let's go to number 9. We're going to stick with wide receivers. And this is where I said in the beginning, we kind of cheated. We have more than 10 players, but we thought this was a cool concept, and I want to throw this to you guys. Pastel, I'll start with you. So we're talking former first-round wide receivers. So guys like Josh Dotson, Laquan Treadwell, Kevin White, Corey Coleman, guys like that really have just stunk the joint up since joining the NFL, despite being picked in the first round. So I'm going to ask you, Pastel, of those guys I just mentioned, which one of them do you think has the best chance to jump to the XFL, be productive in the XFL, to get himself back in the NFL?
So I think Corey Coleman is the type of receiver that didn't really have a I would say, the quarterback play in Cleveland the last few years to really maximize his talent. He was a superb talent at Baylor University. And then when he finally gets a chance now, he's overwhelmed with, who is it? Odell Beckham. I just don't think the opportunity kind of presented himself at the right time. So I think someone like him in the XFL would be a great chance to just get back in, like I said, with the other receiver, playing shape, and just more opportunities. The fun fact about this first-round wide receiver thing is 3 of the receivers, Josh Johnson, Laquan Treadwell, and Corey Coleman, were all selected in the first round of the 2016 draft.
Like, how crazy is that?
Crazy.
Swing and a miss for everyone.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see Josh Doctson get another shot because, you know, for a couple of years there with the Redskins, he was really relied upon and just never seemed to get going. The physical skills were there. He had some injury ailments. He had kind of a mysterious ankle foot injury his first year. I'd personally like to see him get in the XFL to see why he was graded out so high coming from VCU, because when the Redskins selected him, I mean, everybody was stunned because nobody really knew anything about the guy. He hadn't come in to be interviewed by the Redskins. So I've always been enamored to see what is this guy all about. So I'd like to see him get a shot in the XFL.
Yeah, for me, I'm more of a Kevin White guy. I think injuries have really impacted what he's been able to do on the field. I know he's had a couple serious leg injuries. I think he broke his leg twice now. And it just seems like he's never been able to find his footing in the NFL. But you're talking about a guy who was literally being debated between Amari Cooper or him as the number 1 receiver in that draft. And Amari Cooper ended up going 4th overall to Oakland, and then White went 7 to Chicago. And he's just been hurt. But this is talking about a guy who has 4.3 speed. He's 6'3", 215. You know, he graded out very high on all of his workout, all of his combine measurables. So this is a guy who just hasn't really had the shot. And unfortunately, it's because of injuries. Again, a similar thing. You get this guy down here in the XFL and just let him unleash, have a healthy offseason, have a healthy training camp, come in, supplant as a number 1 receiver somewhere, and then just let him run, let him roll. And he just hasn't had that opportunity yet in the NFL because he's been hurt, and then he got buried in the depth chart. And then you know how that goes in the NFL. Once that happens, it's very hard to climb your way out of that hole.
Yep. I couldn't believe that I actually, out of this list, I started with Josh Doctson. I was like, no way. I moved on, and I circled back. I was like, well, maybe I'll go with Josh Doctson, because if I look at guys, you know, based off of what their productivity actually was, as you know, underwhelming as it is, he still has the most productive NFL career out of all these guys. As sad as that is. And correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure the comment section will. But correct me if I'm wrong. I believe he is the only receiver in college to have 2 1,000-yard receiving seasons. So these other guys, they had those breakout seasons, were drafted in the first round. I'm pretty sure he's the only guy out of this group that had 2 1,000-yard receiving seasons, and he had the most productive career in the NFL, although he was injury-prone basically the entire time. I would go with Josh Doctson. And like we said at the beginning of this video, some of these guys may be on NFL rosters right now, but they're hanging on by a thread. Like, we could get to training camp, and they are on the chopping block already. So they're on their last leg, or they're not even on a team. So out of those guys, I could see Josh Doctson being a good fit for the XFL. Let's go ahead and move to number 8. We're talking another former Redskin. And this is another high-profile player. And we debated a ton of this in the pre-show. So, Glass, I'll go ahead and start with you because you are the Redskins fan here. But RG3, Robert Griffin III. Now, the debate was, why would he ever come to the XFL? Because he's got a pretty secure role, right? As the backup of the Ravens. He's making a lot more money than he would in the XFL. But do you think he'd be able to revitalize his career and basically make the jump to the XFL, tear the league up, and then come back as a starting quarterback? Do you think that's feasible? Or should he sit where he is in a good spot in Baltimore?
See, this is where I disagreed with a couple of you guys. I think he should stay where he's at. I don't think that there's a lot for him to gain by going to the XFL and showing off that he can play in the XFL, ultimately to get maybe another starting job. I mean, here's the thing. In Baltimore, he's a helmet to the knee away from Lamar Jackson, from playing meaningful games for the Ravens, and a team that by all accounts is going to be extremely competitive for years to come in the AFC North and always be in the playoff picture. They've got a great front office. So I don't see a lot to gain for him. I mean, he would have to come in and completely take the league by storm, both running and throwing. And the NFL would have to be completely depleted of NFL starting quarterbacks for him to get another shot. And guys, I believe he's 32. I think he's 32 years old, so he's not exactly a spring chicken either. He's I don't think it's a good fit. Is he 30?
Yeah.
So I viewed it more as I think he could come in, and this is almost a longer term solution for RG3. Yes, you're right, Gless. He's definitely in a good situation where he's at in terms of roster spot. He's the backup to Lamar Jackson in an offense that is very tailored to his skill set, because him and Lamar Jackson are very similar skilled players. But here's my thing. I don't think he ever leaves that system. I don't think he's ever going to be he'll never start again in the NFL. I don't think he's ever going to be considered for a starting role again. And I think if he went down to the XFL, similar to Josh Johnson, a veteranized guy, he comes in, I think he would take the league by storm, because it's shown quarterbacks with mobility have had very good success here in the XFL. He comes in, becomes the face, tears it up, wins an MVP, maybe two after 2 years, and then then I think he would have a better shot at getting a starting spot back in the NFL. If we're talking from a purely starting standpoint.
Yep. Or he gets hurt, or he's completely mediocre and he never has a shot in the NFL again. Like that's the other. I mean, that's the other debate. Is
but yeah, so you're talking more like security. You're talking more from a security standpoint. Like, yeah, you're a backup quarterback in the NFL. That's awesome. I wish I was that. And yeah, he can stay as a backup for Baltimore for the next 5 years and be okay with it. But he was a Pro Bowl caliber player in 2013. Yeah. We talk about rehabbing. I'm not talking about rehabbing into the NFL. I'm talking about rehabbing to get back to that level. And you will never do that if you don't play. Go to the XFL. Take a chance on yourself, like we've seen some other athletes do. Take the league by storm, and you would be crazy. I mean, NFL coaches right now just want to see if he can stay healthy. If he has kind of that mojo he had once back in 2013, if he can show that in the XFL, I'd imagine he'd have many opportunities for starting.
See, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think he's way too injury prone. He's got banged up knees. He doesn't move it anywhere as well as he used to. And to be honest with you, he was a mediocre passer at best. Josh Johnson, in my opinion, is a better quarterback at this time than RG3 is. And he's a better starter at this point than RG3 is. RG3 is in a perfect situation for him. And I'm just not very high on who he is as a quarterback.
And he's making $4 million over 2 years. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, that's what it's all about. Like, do you want to be the face of a league potentially, or do you want to make $4 million? You're not going to make that in the XFL.
3,200 yards, 20-5 touchdown to interception ratio. That's
Brandon, that was 8 years ago. No, he had a great rookie year. That was a great year, but that was 8 years ago. That was after major knee surgery and the inability to come back and be able to play in a pro style offense. And then he finally goes to an offense that kind of tailors him, and he could potentially get playing time in Baltimore. So
my thing is I just, barring a catastrophic Lamar Jackson injury, I just don't think RG3 will ever start in the NFL again. And I think the opportunity, if he tears it up in the XFL, would present itself to start again if he did that. If he wants to be a starter in the NFL again, I think his best case, barring a Lamar Jackson injury, would be to go to the XFL, play well, and then use that as leverage to get into a position where he could compete for a starting job.
I'm really interested to see what the fans think in the comment section. Make sure you guys comment below. Do you think RG3 would be a good fit in the XFL? Do you think he'd be even willing to go to the XFL? Like I said, it really comes down to, do you want to play? Do you want to be potentially the face of a league? Or do you want to make a lot more money? So
you got to bet on yourself, man. Bet on yourself.
Yeah. At the end of the day, man, I don't know. It'd be hard to, turn down millions of dollars, multiple millions of dollars for $500,000, even if you are the backup, because like Gless said, I mean, Lamar Jackson, he hasn't been injured yet, but just the style that he plays, he's pretty reckless in terms of, and the Ravens don't hold him back in terms of running the ball. So
for sure,
an injury is going to happen at some point. How severe, we don't know. When, we don't know. But I mean, RG3 is going to see the field. We kind of saw it. Didn't he start at least a game last season? I don't know.
He started week 17.
Yeah, the last week of the year.
Yeah, so he got a start in there. But yeah, at the end of the day, it comes down to, do you want to play or do you want dollar signs? So it's an interesting debate for sure, and it's a good debate. So that's why he's on the list, because we were debating about it in our pre-show. So let's go ahead and move on to another big name. But before we do, guys, This episode of XFL Chalk Talk is brought to you by Bet Online. With currently no NBA, NHL, or Major League Baseball, or XFL for that matter, you might think there's nothing to bet on. You, my friend, are wrong. Our exclusive partner has hundreds of sports, events, and games to wager on. Or let them bring Vegas to you with their online casino and blackjack, open 24 hours a day, and it's all online, including their $750,000 poker series. If you're into props, entertainment betting, you can still bet on Survivor, Big Brother, American Idol, Kenny's favorite show, stock prices, and even the weather. Visit their website and join today and receive a 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Be sure to use the promo code BLUEWIRE. Bet Online, your online wagering experts. That's Bet Online. All right, guys. Another big name coming at you. Another big debate. Back to back. Why not just keep the debate going? Number 7, Tim Tebow. Pastel, go.
Tim Tebow's back, baby. And I'm not talking about a quarterback. I'm talking about as an H-back. Yes, I know people are going to think, oh, you're just throwing his name out there for clicks. I'm not talking about him coming back as a quarterback. That's impossible. You can't be 32 years old, been out of the NFL or football in general for 5 years now, and think you can come back and perform it even at the XFL level. No. He's going to come back as an H-back when he should have been in the NFL this whole entire time, that tight end kind of like slash guy, especially in the offenses that we see in the XFL where that guy can run the backfield and then do a double pass. Tim Tebow is that perfect guy for the XFL. And now with the MLB, like his career is done. Let's just be honest what it is. He might still be on the Mets. He's not going to make the Major League team. No. He had his time to be to try that. He had his Michael Jordan time frame, you know.
And kudos to him for trying, by the way. I think it's awesome that he at least he gave it a legit shot.
Tell you what, he got far. He got to AAA.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know.
Yeah.
But the only reason I agree with that, Pastel, is because his Major League Baseball career doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So I think it might be the end of the road there. So that is the one reason why I maybe consider that it also comes down to, does he want to keep playing? I mean, he's got a pretty good gig with ESPN and the SEC network.
Well, so he was contacted about the XFL at one point last year, and he said he was all in on baseball. And that, you know, Tim Tebow, he's always all in on whatever he does.
Right.
But if the Mets aren't all in on him anymore, then that might be where you cut sling load and say, okay, I'm going to go try something else now that I was told no.
Yeah, what makes it more plausible is that he's been staying in tremendous shape playing in professional sports. So he's been playing professional baseball since he left the NFL. The only thing, I think athletically he could still hang, and I think that, like you said, to your credit to your point, Brandon, is with this style of offenses we see in the XFL, you know, the throwback passes, the double pass, you know, the type of trickery we could see, I think he would make a good offensive weapon. My only concern is how much of the athleticism is left. Is this the guy who can still outrun people? I mean, he hasn't really played another position professionally. I think he moonlighted in a couple preseason games, but is there? I mean, does he have the skill set to play H-back or tight end or any kind of position like that, or is he just a quarterback who had great athleticism?
I mean, the guy squatted what was like 500 pounds. The dude is a brick house for a quarterback. I mean, you put him as a fullback or a tight end, just say go block. You know, a guy like Tim Tebow, he's going to see like a bull. He's going to see red and just charge after him. He's going to be the best coach's weapon possible, because he's going to do exactly what the coach has says to do. So I think
I would just like to see what happens the first time he goes across the middle and gets just crushed by a safety. I'd be very interested to see how that goes from there.
Bring Tebowing back.
That's right. I have questions whether he wants to do that.
Yeah.
You know what? I remember in the NFL, some teams wanted to bring him in to be kind of an H-back, fullback type of guy, and he was like, "Thanks, but no thanks. I only want to play quarterback." So, because Paso, I think you make some intriguing arguments. I think the double pass thing is interesting. Kind of using that Swiss Army knife kind of role, but doing it a little bit different, not doing the Quentin Flowers style. You're doing it more of a kind of a blocker H-back kind of style. So I think there could be a place for him, but I just wonder how open he really even would be to not play quarterback.
Like Pastel said, whatever he does all in. So does he have another one of those in the tank? I mean, you can only go through the cycle so many times. I mean, with the NFL, he was obviously all in, tried to switch positions, didn't work out there, went all in with baseball. Does he really want to do it again, like go all in on another league?
It's the legacy of Tim Tebow, though. Like, let's not kid ourselves. People think his career wasn't successful. He won a playoff game versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then he went and played baseball at the AAA level. at 32 years old. And now
I'm totally convinced. I mean, I don't want to get too far off the beaten path because we got to move on. But I'm convinced that Tim Tebow was pushed out of the league because of the crazy media attention around him. You couldn't convince me that he couldn't be a third string quarterback at least, or a backup in some places, considering the quarterback play that we've seen in the league. Like, is he a starting quarterback? No, but he was better than a lot of third string quarterbacks in the league by the time he got the boot. I purely think he just wasn't worth the hassle because of something out of his control, which was the media scrutiny and coverage of him. I mean, you remember when he went to the Jets? It was freaking ridiculous. Like, they were doing a daily Tim Tebow watch. Like, why?
Yeah, I mean, that's 100%. That's 100% the reason, man. You just can't have a second, third string guy who has 40, 50 media members around him at all times. It's just
and that right there is why the XFL, if they had the opportunity, pay the man whatever you can, because he obviously would bring a lot of eyeballs into the XFL.
A lot of eyeballs, yep.
So let's move on to a quarterback at number 6 that actually was linked to the XFL last offseason. That's Paxton Lynch. Now, he was cut by the Seattle Seahawks, I believe. Rumors started swirling about XFL potential with Paxton Lynch. He's a former first-round pick to the Denver Broncos. And then he signed with the Steelers. I think he signed with the practice squad and was even elevated because they had so many injuries. Even Duck Hodges, who we talked about last year, started some for the Steelers, and we thought he was an XFL quarterback. But Paxton Lynch, guys, does he have anything left in the tank? Did he ever have anything in the tank to begin with? Kenny, I know you're not a big Paxton Lynch guy, but could he rehab his career in the XFL?
I think he could probably compete for a starting job. The film I've seen on him at the professional level, just none of it's impressed me, from his time in Denver to preseason play in Denver. Like, just nothing he's done has made me think he's a credible professional quarterback. And to be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of him coming out of Memphis. I thought he had a decent career at Memphis, but honestly, now that you have guys like Brady White who are at Memphis who are putting up better numbers than he did at Memphis, it throws into question a lot of stuff. I think a lot of what got him to the point was he's 6'7", 220 plus pounds. He's a big guy, but he doesn't have an howitzer for an arm. It's not like he
has such an unorthodox throwing motion, doesn't he? It's so weird to watch.
It's very weird. He's got weird mechanics. I don't know. I think he could definitely compete, but I don't know if he'd even be an elite level guy at the XFL level, to be honest. He kind of reminds me of Philip Nelson.
Yeah.
Oh God, don't get going on that, Kenny.
Oh God, we already had enough Philip Nelson discussions this past year. I agree with Kenny, but I think with the question, the question is guys who can rehab their career to make it back to the NFL, and I think Paxton Lynch, tailor-made for this discussion. He 100% has to be on this list because that is the eventual goal for a lot of these guys. He's still a young guy. He still potentially has a lot of playing career left in him. And, maybe he just needs to play a little bit more. I mean, he had some playing time in Denver, but aside from that, he's just kind of been a backup, a third stringer, competing for a spot. He's kind of bounced around a little bit. So I think the XFL is a perfect place for him to at least see if he can play. Right. And can he win a starting spot, or is he going to be another Christian Hackenberg? Yep. And I think that remains to be seen. But I think absolutely he belongs on this list. I think 6 is the perfect spot for him.
It seems like he would have the very similar situation that Cardell Jones is in. He had a pretty good year his last year at Memphis. Came in with a lot of hype. He went obviously a lot higher than Cardell did, but he's kind of coming and going from practice squads, and at some point it's just it's going to run out on him. So the best route is to go to the XFL. I think of all the quarterbacks we've mentioned so far, this is the most realistic one in a Paxton Lynch. And I think it would be a smart move for Paxton Lynch depending on how training camp this year goes for him. So he comes in at number 6. Let's go to number 5, and we were trying to find running backs. I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, in today's age, running backs, it's literally a Rolodex. You could have a successful season. Next season, you get an injury and you're out of the league before you even know it. So there was a ton of guys to really sort through and choose from here. But Gless threw out a very interesting one, and that's Ajayi. And as a Dolphins fan, I'll tell you how pissed I was when they traded away Ajayi to the Eagles. And he actually played well for the Eagles the rest of that season. But the concern with Ajayi was he got hurt at the end of that year. Then he tore his ACL. He had torn his ACL already when he was at Boise State. He was a beast at Boise State, but the concern with him coming out of school, which is why he fell to the 5th round of the Dolphins, was skill is always there. He's probably the most complete back in that entire draft, depending on who you talk to, but his knees are like a knees of like a 40-year-old man. like at one of his knees, it's like literally bone on bone at this point. He's had so many knee issues. So injuries have always been a concern, but he's only 26 years old, which is the reason why I think this is somewhat realistic. I don't think it's, out of the realm of possibility that Ajayi could resurrect his career, because before he got hurt, he was an ascending running back in this league with the Dolphins and then the Eagles.
Yeah, on NFL's top 100 players every year, in 2017, they ranked him the 69th player in the whole entire NFL. And that just goes to show how awesome a year he had in 2016. He had 3 games where he rushed over 200 yards. I think he was the 4th player ever to do that. And that was only a few years ago. And it seems like, I don't know if this guy, people just don't like him. It's like every time he does well,
because he's English, man. People don't like him because he's English. I'll just go out and say
British.
Just British. It's just crazy to me because he got traded to the Eagles, won a Super Bowl, played well for them. And then, like you said, he got the injury. Then he just never got another shot. And it's just like, he's 26 years old. He's got a history of producing. Give this guy a shot.
Yeah. Dude, he would fit perfect in LA. He'd fit perfect in LA in that system. No, he's a bruising running back. I know we talked about their running back situation. They couldn't get any of their guys going. We were really high on Elijah Hood. He reminds me a lot of Elijah Hood, except a better version of Elijah Hood. I think he would be a stud with the Wildcats.
Yeah, he's a physical freak, man. I love the way he runs. I think that it would be awesome to see him in the XFL, and he'd be an instant star too. He'd kind of be one of those guys that come on a team and it instantly change how that offense goes. Yeah, I think he's that good.
Yeah, so Ajayi comes in at number 5. Let's just continue to, what this list could very well be the top 10 Dolphins, former Dolphins. Number 4, Dion Jordan. Now, while I was very pissed when Ajayi left the Dolphins, not so much when Dion Jordan left. Wasn't a huge fan even when they traded up for him. He's kind of an interesting player, aside from the marijuana issues that he continuously has, much like Josh Gordon. He's just, for the NFL at least, the XFL it may be a little bit better of a fit because they're, guys aren't quite as big, but he always had that tweener kind of build. He was never able to really in the upper body, amass more muscle to like get off of blocks. I mean, he came in as a pure pass rusher, and he can't get off blocks. He can't stop the run. And nothing really changed throughout the course of his short career in the NFL. He's still hanging on by a thread. I think he was. Yep. Is he still with Seattle? I know he got suspended again, or did they waive him?
He's Oakland now.
He's with Oakland. I'm sorry, now. Las Vegas. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. So, I got to get used to that.
Hanging on by a thread. It's only a matter of time before he's out of the league unless he drastically turns it around. Do you think Dion Jordan is a guy that could come into the XFL, really tear it up, and make his way back to the NFL, or become a stud in the XFL?
I absolutely believe he could rehab his career in the XFL, and I think he could be probably the best defensive player in the XFL. He would, as of right now, if he were to join the XFL tomorrow, he'd be the biggest physical freak that the league has seen, maybe outside of Sean Oakman, but he's a younger version of Sean Oakman and a more productive version of Sean Oakman. Yep. He's 6'6", 250. He ran a 4.54 at the
that's sad for Sean Oakman.
Yeah, I mean he would be an absolute physical nightmare for offensive and by the way, offensive lines that aren't particularly great. That's one thing the XFL doesn't have an abundance of is quality offensive linemen. You put somebody with Dion Jordan's skill sets and a fully engaged Dion Jordan, someone whose head is focused and screwed on straight, he would absolutely tear up the XFL. I would think.
Yeah, there's a reason why Seattle in 2018 put a first-round tender on him, and that was just 2 years ago because I'm sure Carroll saw the potential there, and he still had 4 sacks that year. He just what did we say earlier? The best ability is availability. He's just never there. He's either suspended or injured.
Mentally, he's never been there. Never been there. Yeah. Never been.
But when he is
enough.
There, he produces. So to Kenny, 100% agree with you, man.
It wasn't like he was a stud when he was on the field. I mean, he was productive. Definitely not for where he was picked. That's for sure. But like I said, he's kind of that tweener body in the NFL. But in the XFL, yeah, Kenny, he'd be probably the most athletic defensive player in the league. overall.
Yeah, I think without a doubt he would be. I mean, just go look at his pre-draft measurables. They're ridiculous. They're insane. I mean, there was a reason he was picked number 4 overall coming out. And not only was he highly productive at Oregon, but then he had the athleticism behind it.
Yeah,
I mean, he was known for more of a speed rusher, right? Not more.
Correct.
Oh yeah.
Correct.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dion Jordan comes in at number 4. We're going to stick with the defensive line at number 3 with Robert Kimdiche. And guys, he came in later in the first round. Once again, I mean, it's, a theme with these guys. They're first round picks, but they don't pan out. He had some problems with staying fit, I guess you could say. The Dolphins tried to crack at him. Came in, wasn't fit, couldn't get in shape. So like, all right, see you later. Is at this point, does he even want to put in the effort to be, because the skill set's there. Obviously, when you're a first round pick, you have some skills at least. But is the motivation to be the best at what you do there, or to be at the level that you need to be at to play professional football? Is he even at this point worthy of the XFL?
I wish it was there, because he is one of the most physically impressive players we've seen come out of high school and college in the past 10 to 15 years. I mean, you remember this guy in high school was playing almost every position on the field. He ended up becoming a starting defensive lineman from day one at Ole Miss when they were in their peak a couple years ago in the SEC. I mean, the guy was a track and field all-star in high school, All-American. I mean, the guy just everything he did, and he's 300 pounds, but he doesn't look it. The guy looks like he's 300 pounds with about 10% of body fat. He's absolutely an unreal athlete. But again, the one thing that is different between Dion Jordan, who we just mentioned, and Kimdiche is, he started and played, but his production has never been there. The numbers were never there in college either. It was always, this is what he could do, this is what he would be able to do, or this is what he can turn into. But he never was. It was almost like he was Jadeveon Clowney without the production.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, he was the number 1 consensus number 1 player in high school coming out. That potential and that body size and the skill set, I mean, you can't coach any of that stuff. So I would just love to see if we could, if he could just get in the XFL and just see a couple flashes of what could be. He may be able to get back on an NFL roster, but again, he's another great guy. We're talking about Paxton Lynch, potential. And, he's a guy that he could use it. But to Riley's point, does he even want to play anymore?
Put in the work.
That's a big
Does
question.
he want to put in the work to play?
Well, I think you see that occasionally with, top overall prospects, is they're kind of given things at a young age in life.
That's a good point.
They never really produce at the level they're at because they're always giving it to them. They're always given a second chance. And with him, he's now 25 years old. He might be at that point in his life where he realizes, this might be it unless I get my act together. And in the NFL, they don't have time for you to get your act together. If you're not good, they'll give you maybe a year if you're that high of a prospect, but then you're gone. So maybe it's just a reality check for him to go to the XFL, realize this is his last shot. And if he doesn't do well there, then he's done.
Then he's out.
And hopefully for his sake, he does have that. Because I agree with Riley on that point too, that it just seems like he's never really wanted it. He's just a physical freak. And it's just easy for him.
So let's move on to number 2. This is probably, to me, the most interesting name on the list because he's another Dolphin. And he's actually a current Dolphin.
Your boy.
Glessner actually I think, Gless, you brought this up when we were going through this list. But Josh Rosen, this is a guy that comes in as a top 10 pick. He felt slighted that he fell all the way. He was picked at 10 to the Cardinals, right? They traded up for him, I believe. Yeah, because the Dolphins were picking right behind him, and I wanted the Dolphins to take him. So I was stoked when the Dolphins took him for that second-round pick, and we got him. But, this guy's been
got him cheaper.
I feel bad for Josh Rosen because – no matter what you think of him as a guy or a person, he's been dealt some really crappy hands, hasn't he? I mean, the Cardinals were literally the worst offensive line that season that he came in as a rookie in football history. And then he got traded to the Miami Dolphins, who were literally actively shipping out all of their best players to acquire draft picks. So, shocker that he sucked last year because his team sucked. Josh Rosen, I think he's a talented quarterback, but he's not a quarterback, especially at this age, with this experience, that can literally take a team built like the Miami Dolphins are built and, win games on just purely his arm. It's not going to happen. He needs pieces around him. So he was in a no-win situation in both stops. So could he probably stick around as a backup or third stringer? You know, because we'll see what the Dolphins do at the draft this year. I'm expecting him to take a quarterback in the first round, probably at pick 5, maybe trade up. We'll see. But if the Dolphins take a quarterback like we're suspecting, they have Fitzpatrick already on the roster. Do they stick with Josh Rosen, or do they try to get rid of that contract, you know, moving into next year? Does he catch on with another team, or is the XFL a place where Josh Rosen can go and be the man, the face of the XFL, like a PJ Walker, except PJ Walker wasn't as highly touted, but look at where PJ Walker is now. He could very well compete at least for the starting spot with Bridgewater. He could be right there in the mix come the regular season. Josh Rosen could do the same thing. He's the same talent level. It's just, does he want to, you know, it's an ego thing too when you're a top 10 NFL pick, guys.
Right.
To, you know, be like, all right, I'll take my shot at the XFL. So he has to kind of get past that, but if he actually made that jump, it would be huge for the XFL and possibly revitalizing his career.
Yeah, this is if he's not on an NFL roster at the end of this season, this better be the first guy the XFL calls up and says, dude, come on down. We'll pay you what you want, or at least as much as we can give you, and come down here and tear things up in the XFL. Show the NFL what they're missing, and that you've been dealt, like you said, some bad hands, because this guy is everything that you would want in a quarterback. He's got a very strong arm. He's very accurate. He's got great touch. He's played in a pro style offense his entire college career. Because remember, he played for I believe it was Jim Mora Jr. at UCLA.
Yeah, I think so.
He did. Yeah, Jim Mora. Yep.
Yeah, played in a pro-style offense. This is the guy I think who would be perfect face for rehabilitating your career and having been dealt bad hands in the NFL as to how you can do it. Because I think he would come in and instantly probably be the most talented quarterback in the league. And sometimes he can rub you the wrong way with his ego and his brashness, but
just his demeanor. It's a lot like Aaron Rodgers. Like, depending on, you either kind of love the guy or you get him. Rubbed the wrong way by him. Yeah.
But I think that would fit well in the XFL. I think that would make him. I think that would be a fun guy to watch and hear mic'd up and play. I think all around he's the perfect prospect for the XFL if he's not on a roster next year.
I think he would relapse and rehab. I think he's damaged goods at this point. He wouldn't do anything. He's just one of those guys, like Kenny said.
His psyche's been destroyed.
He's damaged good. He's like Patrick Ramsey for the old Redskins. How you like that, Gus?
Patrick Ramsey. Nice reference.
He got shook up too much playing for UCLA and then
or
for,
like a
Dolphins.
Or a David Carr. That's probably a good one too.
Yeah, that's a good.
His psyche is crushed at this point. I don't think he's got anything left because he's lost it up here.
I mean, that's a lot.
Can you blame him? Can you really blame him though?
Dude,
I don't blame him.
That's a lot. You're casting out a 23-year-old that's done a top 10 overall pick, and he's 23, and you say he can't bounce back from that? That's crazy.
I mean, he should have never been a top 10 pick. Like, that's not.
You don't think so? You don't think he was a top 10 caliber quarterback?
Oh, heck no, man. There's guys that when I see him in the draft, I'm like, all right, he's going to be picked there because as like we do our mock drafts, like, yes, I knew he was going to go in the top 15. But me personally, I thought he was a late second round pick.
I don't have time to debate this, but dude, if he was literally in the two worst situations you can be in. Well, maybe if he went to the Bengals, but at least a top 3, two worst of the worst situations you could literally be in as a quarterback in the NFL. I mean, I know Kyler Murray did okay this year, but you know, they changed regimes, they changed philosophies. Like, he was dealt such a bad hand. I still think I don't discredit. I'm not, based on what we've seen from him, I'm not going to say this dude is not talented and wasn't worth where he was drafted. I just don't think he was put in situations to succeed. And unless you're like an uber talented guy that can carry a franchise, which I think all of us agree he's not, you know, you're not going to be able to overcome that.
I think he's instantly the best XFL quarterback in the league if he comes to the XFL.
Completely disagree.
Yeah. Absolutely, he is. How do you even debate that? At least talent-wise.
Yeah. I'm not debating talent-wise. I think it's between the ears right now, and I think he's lost his mojo. He's shook right now. He's on stage, and he's stage fright. He can't say anything. I mean, he's a very
confident guy. He's a very confident guy in himself. I'm not sure.
I don't think he's shook. I don't buy that.
I think he just plays on crap teams.
Yeah. I think you put him down in the XFL, he's the MVP.
I mean,
next year.
the Dolphins didn't even want to trade for him. Like when they brought him in, like if you heard Chris Greer, their GM, he wasn't even like, yeah, we'll give him a shot, I guess, and see how it works out. But the plan all along was to go for a quarterback in this year's draft. Like he was not given a fair shot.
He was not the future.
The fact that no other team wanted him either. After 1 year on the crappiest team in the NFL, nobody else thought he was worth a second or third round pick. Like
I thought there was other interest, but the Dolphins just had the best assets to give. Like everybody knew they were tanking, so their second round pick was more valuable.
How many quarterback spots are up for grabs too? At this point, I mean, it's Ryan Tannehill in the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is one of the few years that there is more quarterbacks than there is for a need for them.
There just wasn't much of a market for him last year.
Yeah, it's a very rare year for that though. Like players like Cam Newton and Andy Dalton can't find jobs right now. Like that's very rare.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why I think he's a good fit, because there's just a surplus of quarterbacks and there's even more coming and there's just not enough spots. And a lot of these guys, man, on game day, they only dress 2 quarterbacks. They have the third emergency guy sitting there on the sideline in sweatpants. So even if he is a third stringer, he's going to sit on the sideline and, with an earpiece in his ear. Yeah, I mean, that's all he'll do.
Yeah, we got to move on. But if I had to guess, I mean, this year definitely – and then maybe next year, I still think he's going to be at least a third string quarterback. I mean, he's a top 10 pick, so like someone's going to give him a shot. But I feel like the XFL, if they can land a guy like Josh Rosen and convince him like this is the route you want to take if you want to get back, get that game tape at the professional, in a professional football league, which you haven't been able to do right now. This is the route you need to take. So if you can convince him that, it's feasible. But I'm going to see – I think there's going to be NFL interest regardless, if he's benched this year, if the Dolphins draft another quarterback and all of that. So let's move on to number 1. This is a guy that he's probably most known for his stellar play in Notre Dame. Well, actually, probably not. That's probably not what he's most known for. He was a beast at Notre Dame when they made that championship run to get curb stomped by Alabama. But – Manti Teo, guys. He was drafted by the Chargers, and he just couldn't stay healthy. I mean, he has a torn Achilles, which is a devastating injury for football players. Can he come back from an injury like that? Because he really couldn't get it going. He had an ankle injury the year before that really, sidelined him most of the year. He just wasn't the same player. Blows his Achilles out. Didn't really play much last year for the Saints. Is this a guy that you could see? At this point, is he damaged goods? I guess using Pastel's terminology, is he damaged goods at this point, or is he like a guy? Let's give him a shot and see if he can revitalize his career.
I think he. I mean, you look at his last few years. I mean, you talk about damaged goods, but in 2016, he was named the San Diego Chargers team captain. So it's not like he didn't have a successful NFL career. I mean, he's had some years he's been injured.
After the blown Achilles.
Yeah, correct. So I think now it's just a matter of like he's gone through rehab. He's only 29 years old. So and with the ability to recover these days with the technology we have out there, a torn Achilles is not what it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so yes, maybe he did lose a step, but he never had that step. He was never that type of linebacker. He was a inside linebacker. It fills the gap, does well at that. Now, maybe he won't be that same guy in the NFL, but if he goes to the XFL, he'll be just as dominant as he was in college, I believe, just because that's the type of linebacker he was. And the game's slower in college. So the game's going to be slower in the XFL compared to the NFL. So I think he would straight dominate in the XFL, which ultimately would give him the snaps to play in the NFL again.
I agree. And look, I don't think he's damaged goods because he didn't play at all last year, which I think was done intentionally to get healthy, to kind of clear up a lot of the nagging issues he has. But he didn't play at all last year, and the Saints immediately re-signed him. So the Saints clearly think they have something there. Right. Like I said, the biggest thing is can he stay healthy? That's been the knock since he's had a foot issue, ankle issue, now an Achilles issue. And it's unfortunate that the injuries have kind of sapped him of his production a little bit. But I think the year off is probably just what the doctor ordered. But my concern is he was inactive in all but 5 games in 2018 with the Saints. So the Saints might see him as, hey, this is a guy we like on our team. He's a leader, but he's not going to play for us that much. He's going to be kind of maybe a special teams ace or just like an extra defensive coach in the sideline kind of thing. But I think if he was able to get to the XFL, he could show that he could still play at a very high level. This is one of the most dominating defensive players we've ever seen in college. Yep. I mean, he was in the Heisman Trophy final. He was a Heisman Trophy finals. That season he had that year at Notre Dame when undefeated was one of the best football seasons I've ever seen from a defensive player. So I think that's still there. A lot of what he does, you can't teach. It's instinct. A lot of his stuff is instinct and just being in the right place at the right time. And I think he'll be able to show that again in the XFL if given an opportunity to start.
Yeah, so there's our top 10 list. It's quite the list. I mean, all of these guys, whether it's injuries that have kept them off the field, poor decision making, up here mentally when they're on the field. There's a reason for all of these guys why they're on this list. It's why it's called Rehab. Guys that can rehab their NFL careers through the XFL. And maybe even some of these guys can find success just being in the XFL at this point in their careers. I mean, I could see Manti Teo, after what he's gone through with his injuries, being a guy that could be a face of the XFL. Yep. So fans, leave your guy who you think could rehab their career in the comments below, because there's a ton of them. I mean, we discussed like 14 of them in this top 10 list. But there were a lot more guys that we debated that didn't make the list. So I'm interested to see who you guys think that are watching you think would be a good candidate to be a part of this list as well. So leave that in the comment section below. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at XFL Chalk Talk. Give the video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so you get all of our latest content, and keep following the show throughout the offseason heading into 2021 and the XFL season.
What's up, football fans? This is Coach Gless. Want to know how to listen to all of our segments on the go? You can subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform today. And don't forget to rate us and give us that 5-star review.